So now that I have my geometry entered, I need to assign all of these different assets to the appropriate blocks for my building. And we can start with use type. We can see here that if we click on use type, we have one use type, which is office. Our entire building is office use type. So we can drag that to each block. Just drag it over. And you can see that once the use type is assigned to the block becomes highlighted. And that's how you can keep track. So this is a quick one. Oops. And you have to make sure that it catches. And now our entire building has the office use type. And you can check on any of these by double-clicking on the block. And now our entire building has a use type, and we no longer have an icon with an exclamation point at our use type for our use types. Now we can move on to construction assemblies. And you can see here that none of these are assigned yet to our blocks. We can start with our roof, and this is the roof type for all of our blocks. Again, bringing it over till it highlights the block. We don't have any skylights. Now we need to bring over our wall type, which is brick or stone on masonry, and this is the wall type for all of our blocks. Drag these over one by one. Okay, and now we have windows, which is a little bit more involved. So let's start with that. We'll start with our south block and bring over our windows. But once we've done that, we also need to give more information about the windows on this block. So we'll double click on the block, and we can see that we need to add information about whether the windows are continuous or discrete, and then further information about the number of windows. So on our south block, we have discrete windows, and we have 56 discrete windows on the south block. Our window width is 3 feet, and our window height is 6 feet, and we have no shading. Now we can close this window, and our windows have been brought over and specified in terms of size and number for the south block. Now we'll move to the long block, second and third floor. We haven't assigned the windows yet, so we'll drag the windows over to that block. And now we can specify that they are discrete windows. On this block we have 72 windows, and they're all the same size, 3 feet by 6 feet, and none of them have exterior shading. Got to bring the windows over to that lower block. Oop, it didn't take, so I'm going to close this. Sometimes if you're having trouble getting an asset to move to a block, you can change the perspective you're looking at to make it a little bit easier. Since I know I'm trying to get at this first floor long block, I can look at a bottom view of the building, and then I can drag my window over to that. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to my top view, and then I rotated it to the view that I'm used to. Now I can double click again and get more specific about these windows. On that long block, At the first floor we have 36 windows, 3 feet by 6 feet, and no shading. Okay, and now I want to take care of the windows for the central block. You don't need to double click on the block. I did that, but I can close this. I can just bring the windows over to that block and then double click on it to add additional information. I've got 60 windows on this block. And finally, the north block. I'll bring the windows over there. Double click. You can see that if I had left this as a window layout of continuous, I could enter a window to wall ratio. So it has a different input depending on whether it's continuous or discrete. We have discrete windows, and we've got 56, just like the south block, 3 feet by 6 feet. Okay. And finally, I need to assign floor assemblies. You can see both floor types are unassigned. I'll be bringing over the slab on grade to the south block, the first floor long block, the central block, and the north block. I'm going to use the steel joist assembly for the second and third floor long block, since that does not meet the ground. Okay, now I don't have any unassigned components in our construction assemblies, and my warning icon has moved away. And now we can move on to lighting. Now my south block has both types of compact fluorescents, both pendant and recessed. I've got a percentage of floor area covered rather than total fixtures for these. So I've got percent served. For my pendant compact fluorescent, I've got 90%. And for my recessed compact fluorescent, I have 10%. And I don't have occupancy controls for this lighting. The lighting is done for the south block. Now we've got the long block, second and third floor. Has no lighting assigned to it. That long block is again going to have pendant and recessed CFLs, so I'll bring over the pendant compact fluorescent and the recessed compact fluorescent. And then I'll double click on it to give more specific information. My area served for the pendant compact fluorescent on the long block is 80%, and my recessed is 20%. My first floor long block, I've got all 3 types of fixtures, so I will bring over my pendant compact fluorescent. I'm going to move my building. I'm going to rotate it so that I can get a better shot at that lower block. Bring over my recessed compact fluorescent and my pendant LED. And I'm going to make sure that all 3 are there. Yes, they are there. I double clicked on it and they're there. So my pendant compact fluorescent for that first floor long block is 50% of area served. So I need to choose that percent served, 50%. My recessed compact fluorescent, percent served is 20%. And my pendant LED is 30%. And these have to obviously add up to 100% of the area served in your block. And now I can close that. And I'll go back to my normal view. My center block has the pendant and recessed CFLs, so I'll bring those over. My pendant in the central block is 85%. My recessed is 15%. And my north block again has the pendant and recessed compact fluorescence. And on that north block, I've got, just like the south block, I've got 90% area with pendant CFLs and 10% of the served area is the recessed. Okay, so the lighting is now complete, and now we'll move on to the mechanical systems. Now the plant equipment doesn't have to be assigned to blocks because that serves the entire building, but the air handlers do have to be assigned to blocks. My south block is served by air handler number 3. So I'm going to bring that over. And if I double click on that, I can see that it did take the air handler that we've assigned it. Our thermal zone layout in all these blocks is perimeter and core, and our perimeter zone depth is 15 feet. So we've entered that, and now we're just assigning the air handlers. My second and third floor long block is served by air handler number 1. My first floor long block is served by air handler number 2. And again, here I'm going to change my view so that I have access to that block more easily. Okay, now I'll go back to my normal view. My central block is served by air handler number 3, and my north block is served by air handler 1. So that's serving 2 blocks, that air handler. Okay, so now our warnings are gone from our mechanical equipment, and we are ready to score our building. So now that we've completed our geometry, entered all the information about the building, and assigned all the components to the appropriate blocks, we can score the building. And we'll click on Score Building. And this window comes up and tells us that simulating the building could take up to an hour, and that we won't be able to work on this particular project while the building is being scored. Are we sure we want to submit the building for simulation? And we're going to say OK. Now we have a notice that the building has been submitted, and we'll get an email when the building report is complete and ready for download, and we can go back to our buildings.